Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you stopping by and taking a look at my video here. I have a good one for you. It was between Wesley and Leinier Domínguez Pérez. They're both representing the United States, but Wesley is originally from the Philippines, and Leinier Domínguez Pérez is originally from Cuba. For all of my people from the Philippines, kamusta, aking maga kaibagan. Salamat for looking at my video, mabuhay, and all my people from Cuba or from any Spanish-speaking country that might be watching my video. Bienvenido a mi video. Muchas gracias por ver mi YouTube. Muchas gracias para su tiempo. Appreciate it very much. So pretty much for anybody who doesn't speak Filipino or Spanish, I was basically just saying welcome to my friends. I appreciate you guys stopping by my YouTube channel. Appreciate your time. And long life, mabuhay. As always, at the end of the video, I have those chess puzzles for you. If you're a diehard chess fan like me, I got you. And as always, for everybody who watches my stuff, please subscribe to me and give me some comments and some feedback, positive or negative. Let me know if there's anything else that I can do to make my channel more interesting, or what would make it more exciting, or just any suggestions or anything in that respect. But I appreciate it. But if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get rolling, see what we have for this game. Now this is taken from the St. Louis Blitz and Rapid from 2020. Probably about, I think, like 3-4 months ago they played it. This is one of the quicker games. So for rolling, let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so we have knight to f3. Get this volume up here. All right, so we got knight to f3. We have d5, we have e3, knight to f6, knight to c4, we have e6, we got b3, we got b6, we have bishop to b2, bishop to b7, and we have knight to c3. And now we are in the Réti opening. So it has some hints of like the Nxc3 Larsen, because you guys know, the b3, bishop b2s and stuff for the Nxc3 Larsen. So we have some hints of that. And possibly, after g3, bishop to g2, maybe a queen c2 situation, kind of something similar like a Catalan. So, this is pretty typical like Wesley play. So moving on here, we do have knight b to d7. We have pawn takes d5, pawn takes d5. We have d4. We have bishop to d6. We have g3. And we have queen to e7. Now, queen to e7 is the novelty of the game. It has never been played before. I'm believing that castles in this position is more standard, and that's the generally played move in the position here. So like I said, we do have g3, we have bishop to g2 possibly coming, and then castles. Castles, and so we have a more typical, kind of Catalan, Nxc3 Larsen type of situation that Wesley does like to play. So moving on, we do have bishop to g2, and so we have a6. And then we have castles here. Now, something I want to point out, coming back here to where bishop to g2 was played. Something that was actually pretty strong, and something that you guys should be paying attention to when you're playing your own games, is trying to prevent the other side from castling. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with all the rules associated with castling, I'm going to go ahead and put up in the top right-hand corner the video that I made on the complete rules of castling. It's one of my earlier videos I made, just kind of showing everybody the ins and outs and complete rules as far as castling is concerned, so that way you have everything you need. One of the moves would be bishop to a6. And what you see is this does cut the king off, because as you guys know that are familiar with the rules of castling, make sure we get, there we go, that are familiar with the rules of castling, is this king cannot, in the process of castling, cannot pass through a attack square. So as you see, this bishop is attacking this f1 square, so the king doesn't have the ability to pass through. Now, of course, if the bishop was on this diagonal, that would also not be right. But let's say the bishop was on this diagonal, it was attacking this rook in the corner, the king would be able to castle because it wouldn't have to touch this square. But that's all covered in the video that I made before. So like I said, I'm going to be putting that up there. But we would probably have to back the bishop up like this, and then after bishop takes f1, the king would have to take f1, or you take with the rook. But it's probably better with the king, because you can try to see if you can you know, without a light square bishop from your opponent, we'll be able to try to tuck the king in G2, and it shouldn't be too bad. So going back, like I said, we did have A6 and castles. So we have castles, long castles by black. We have A4, we have H5, we have A5, and so B5, and then we have H4. And, you know, this kind of does stop the attack that black has going, but it doesn't do the absolute best job. One of the best moves in the position would be actually knight to H4. And knight to H4 would stop it considerably better, mostly because you have this knight to F5 move coming, and you're going to be forking the queen and the bishop, and you don't want to allow that, so it's going to force a G6. And then after we have queen to E2, it seems like with all of these pieces trained on this square and the queen protecting, that we're trying to push E4. So if you are mistaken and, you know, try to defend against that, that would actually be a horrible blunder, because knight would take B5. And you can see that this king is really exposed over here, even though after you're sacrificing a piece. So after pawn would take B5, we'd see A6. Bishop would go to A8, and then we'd see queen takes B5. And I mean, one of the moves, we're going to be moving this bishop here, and we're going to be pinning this knight down to the king. And so as you can see, the king doesn't have a lot of room to breathe. You know, A7's coming. You have possibilities of checkmates here on B8. So that's definitely not where you want to be. Like I said, we did have H4, and then we have knight to E4. So we have queen to C2. King side steps to B8, just trying to give itself a little bit more security. A lot of the times when you castle queen side, or castle long as it's called, you know, king to B8 and king to B1 are very useful moves, just to try to, you know, step your king, you know, just give it a little bit more safety there in the corner. So we do have rook F to C1. We have knight takes C3, queen takes C3. And we have F6. And as you can see, F6 is pretty useful because this knight would like to either try to pop into G5 or to E5. And F6 perfectly, you know, restricts that movement. So as you guys know, you know, before I'm always talking about, you know, pawns restricting knight movement. So, you know, you have like F6 situations, you have C3s and stuff that can come in situations to prevent these types of knight moves. And they're very useful. So we have queen to D3. We have queen to E6. We have rook to C2. So rook D to G8. We have queen to D2. We have G5. Now, G5 is a good attacking move. As you can see, I mean, the position is going to start to try to get open, especially once you can swing the queen over and stuff like that. But something that was actually very good for Leinier Domínguez was actually B4. And B4 is going to really shut down a lot of what, you know, white is trying to do on this side. And it's going to make it a lot harder for them to attack. So after something like possibly rook to A4, then G5 can come. And you don't have to worry as much about, you know, the speed of the attack on this side. Because as you guys know, as some of you guys know, when you do castle on opposite sides, usually that means that you're going to be making some like seriously fast attacks with your pawns. So as you can see, black is making their attacks with their pawns here, and white is trying to do the same thing over here. And so a lot of you guys that are familiar with playing like Sicilian dragons and stuff, you know, Yugoslavs and stuff, I mean, you know, usually you have F3, G4, H4, so you probably have some experience doing those types of, you know, opposite side castling attacks. So, like I said, the queen does come to D2. We do have G5. We have bishop to A3. And then so we have bishop takes A3, rook takes A3, and then we have knight back to F8. And both sides are actually doing pretty good. Black has a slight advantage in this position, just simply because their attack, as you can see, is considerably faster on this side. And they are about to rip open white's defenses. You know, white is going to need to try to do something about that very quickly. And so the most logical thing is to, you know, threaten a pretty bad check. So we see queen to C3, and after rook to H7, we do see pawn takes G5. Now, you know, like I said, I mean, you're going to have to give. You're going to have to like try to stop this attack as quickly as possible. So the position is pretty equal in this situation, but what Leinier Domínguez actually could have done, instead of rook to H7, much stronger, was actually rook to G7. So we would have like pawn takes g5 like we had before, and then after knight to g6. In both cases where the rook moved here, Leinier Domínguez did have this possibility of moving knight to g6. You're not really worried about losing a pawn, because what's going to happen is once the pawn is taken and the queen takes back, you have this half open file, you have this half open file, and this pawn is going to be moving. And or you're going to be you're going to be threatening to open the position up, and that's something that you don't want as white. So after queen takes f6, we would probably have to back up with the knight on h2, and this is something that like fairly similar would be after rook to h7 is played. These you can just kind of follow these similar types of lines, but the knight could actually come to h4, and you don't want to take. Because if pawn takes h4, you would actually see the cute little in-between move b4. And then b4, the problem with b4 is the fact that it's forking the rook and the queen, but the queen is defending this rook. So it's going to be deflecting the queen away, and then you have the ability to threaten checkmate on g2, and then also attack this rook on c2. So that's not a very pleasant, fork. So like I said, we did have rook to h7, and then if the pawn takes g5, we have h4. We have knight takes h4. We have pawn takes g5, and we do have knight back to f3. And this position is very, very good, very, very good for white. So for Wesley, and as you can see, it's a little bit different because this pawn is kind of in the way of the G rook here. So you don't have like the same checkmate threats going on. So that's why knight to g6 was very important to be played. So we do have g4, but that unfortunately knocks the knight to a much better square because the knight wanted to come to this nice outpost on e5 anyway. So that's not really, it wasn't really attacking anything. So we have rook g to h8. We have knight to c6 with check. We have king to c8. We have queen to a7, or we have knight to a7. We have king back to b8. Knight comes back to c6 with check. We have king to c8, and we have queen to c5. Queen goes to f6. But really what the queen needed to do is go to f5 so that it can hold on to this pawn as much as possible, because the pawn does get snapped off the board. It is actually in this position that Leinier Domínguez actually resigns, and he does so because of a checkmate possibility on b7 after this knight moves, possibly like, let's say, like a knight to a7 check. The king is going to be forced over. So if we just to demonstrate, if we just kind of make sure that, yeah, if we just kind of take a look at just a random move, this is not going to be a move that's played. But let's just say, for example, for the purposes of showing, what I'm talking about, let's say the rook comes down to h6 or something. We're going to see knight to a7 check, and then that's going to force the king over. And then after king comes to b8, we're going to see queen takes b7 with checkmate. So that is what was going to be discovered. And there wasn't really a way to, you were going to have to give up a piece, basically with, you were going to have to take here and do something like this, which is not where you want to be. You're just going to be down. You have so many threats here, and you're threatening the queen also. You're going to be picking up this pawn over here. So it's not the most pleasant of situations. So yeah, like I said, we do have these chess puzzles for you. This is one I gave you guys last time, and it was the medium level discovered attack. Like I said, I did get this one right, so I was pretty proud of myself. But the answer was actually knight takes d5. I think it was actually kind of a tough one to find. But I think the things that people probably were thinking about is the fact that you do have checkmate here. If you can find a way to deflect this knight away, and you understand that knight takes d7 wasn't quite doing it because the queen was just going to take back, and there really wasn't any way to deflect this knight away. So knight to d5 was really the only way, because if pawn takes, we're going to see knight takes, and then after queen takes, we do have bishop to f5. Actually, no, sorry. Bishop takes h7 first, and then after king moves over, we do have bishop to f5 with check. So that was the important thing about that one. And so it doesn't leave black with very many options but to go g6. After knight takes e7, queen takes e7, bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, pawn takes c4. We do have bishop to g5, and there really is nothing to do that's going to protect this move here, knight to g4. Because the queen is kind of overloaded. The queen is protecting all these pieces. So if we did have something like that, I mean, you can just do something like that and, you know, you're up an entire piece. So going to the next one, we do have this one here. And it is a discovered attack, and it's the advanced one. I actually got this one wrong when I first looked at it. And I'll kind of give you guys a hint. I thought it was bishop to h6, but I was having problems after queen takes h4, and it just didn't seem like it was doing enough, and it was wrong. So I did get that wrong. So that's not the answer. So don't think that one is. But I appreciate you guys coming through. Muchas gracias. Salamat, Kabigan, Pa Alam, adios. I appreciate everybody coming by and stopping through. Go ahead and, like I said, give me a subscribe and a like, and you know, give me some feedback, positive or negative. I always use any comment that I get, whether it's positive or negative, to try to improve and just do better. Hopefully I will be doing better going into the future, and I'll be what people want to see. So like I said, I appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time. All right.